Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Romania once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. Now we're returning to a brewery that has featured on the channel once or twice before, and these guys in my opinion are very interesting because they're one of the real pioneers of the Romanian craft beer scene, doing lots of different styles, and they're also one of the first breweries to push their beers outside of Romania and get them across the European continent. And it's always nice to give coverage to different countries when it comes to the European craft beer scene, I think. But the beer itself is a style that I haven't tried from these guys before. It's a style that I do enjoy though, and this one kind of just caught my eye because of the adjuncts that are in it, because it's a flavour that I very much enjoy in other things. So yeah, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to a little place called Jilava, which is to the south of Bucharest, the Romanian capital, and we're going to have a look at another beer then from Hop Hooligans. So this particular beer is called Unravel Mint. It comes in at 11% ABV, and they're describing this one as a Choco Mint Imperial Stout. So yeah, one of my favourite flavours of ice cream is mint chocolate chip. Also, I love vanilla and fudge and Scottish tablet flavours and things like that. But yeah, I don't think I've ever reviewed a mint beer here on the channel before. So that was one of the other reasons. But how often can you say you're trying a mint chocolate Imperial Stout from Romania? You know, for me that is pretty cool. But yeah, the last beer we reviewed from Hop Hooligans came, I think, as I say, about 18 months ago. I'm pretty sure that was an IPA, if memory serves me correctly, and I do have another one that we'll be reviewing from them at some point very soon too. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Hop Hooligans before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on the geography tagging system. So go in there, put your hometown, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from your local area, they should pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Romanian playlist along with a number of other things, because we've reviewed a good few breweries from Romania at this point in time, and hopefully we can do more going forward. But yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at my notes for Hop Hooligans, and I will apologise in advance for any bad Romanian pronunciations. Really not familiar with the language at all. But anyway, Hop Hooligans, as I mentioned to you already, are based in Jilava, to the south of Bucharest in Romania, and this company's been active since 2016, and it was founded by Cristian Dinu and Mircea Georgescu. So the story of Hop Hooligans began when Cristi and Mircea teamed up with Petre Ion, who is the founder of Beer O'Clock, which was one of the very first craft beer bars in Romania. But about a year after the launch of Hop Hooligans, Petre died in a car accident in April of 2017, and after this, times proved to be very hard for Hop Hooligans, but they managed to persevere, and they've now gone on to be pretty successful actually. But they built a reputation for themselves early on by brewing a variety of different styles, which is something they've continued to date, and they also have done a number of collaborations over the years as well. But in 2018 they started canning their beers, and so they became the first brewery in Romania to do so, and the following year they partnered up with Beretta, who are probably the other very well-known craft brewery from Romania these days. But they teamed up with them to create Haze Fest, which is the very first, or was the very first, Romanian craft beer festival, and that's still going today from what I understand. But in September of 2020 they opened up their own tap room in Bucharest, and as of January 2023, when we're filming this review, they've produced around 310 different beers. And like I said to you, they do a whole host of different styles. They've got some of the more kind of modern sour beers in there, they've got IPAs, they've got Imperial Stouts of different varieties as well, and of course you've got, you know, unusual things like barley wines and stuff like that. So yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Hop Hooligans for the moment. If you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, I think that's everything. So the only other thing I can think to say about this beer is that if memory serves me correctly, I actually purchased this one from beerdome.nl, a very good online beer shop from the Netherlands, and they get things from Brazil, Romania, Bulgaria, all over the place. So yeah, Beerdome is one of the best European craft beer dealers, in my opinion. They always get really good stuff from Canada and the US and things too. So yeah, let's crack on with this one and see what it's all about. So just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. But there you can see at the top of the can is the Hop Hooligans symbol. That is quite nice, quite simple and straightforward. But there you can see the Unravel mint and chocolate as well. So that does look very, very good, I have to say. But yeah, little 330ml can, this one. As I mentioned earlier, this is an 11% Imperial Stout. I don't know whether we would consider this one an Imperial Pastry Stout, but it says on the side here, from ancient times, we've been trying to unravel the mysterious workings rattling in our brain, trying to make sense of why and the how of our reality. We might be overrating ourselves. The squishy bits floating around our think box might actually be concerned with entirely other important stuff. Extra pale, the malts in this one, extra pale, flake oats, dextrin, chocolate, T50, brown malt, roasted barley, crystal, extra dark, and crystal medium. Hops are Centennial, and it uses WLP number 2 yeast, and they've got some adjuncts in there, which are cocoa nibs and mint. So, yeah, this should be pretty interesting. Like I say, an Imperial mint chocolate stout, 11% ABV. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else to do but open up the can and have a wee look at it and see what it's all about. So yeah, let's do this then. Very curious about this one. So there we are. This is quite nice. I have to say, it does look pretty damn good actually. Yeah, this one I think, I can't remember when I bought this actually. I think it was at the same time as the Brazilian beers that we reviewed a good wee while ago actually. But still, it does look very, very nice, I have to say. So, as you can see, it's poured pretty much as you would expect from an Imperial Stout. There's a solid finger and a bit of a frothy, I would say kind of medium, slightly tan head on this one. You can see that there's a mix of kind of smaller bubbles there down toward the bottom, and they do get gradually bigger as you go up toward the surface of the head, but you can see this one has a lovely sort of dark ebony rosewood colour to it, as you would expect. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in will affect that too. But yeah, when it comes to beers that contain, like black malt and special B and stuff like that, it really is quite difficult to change the colour by using adjuncts. But I'm guessing the cocoa nibs might have gone some way to affecting how dark this one is. But if we shine the light through this, it is pretty much black as night. There's not even a little bit of that kind of Coca-Cola, Pepsi Max coloured edge to it. So yeah, it does look pretty nice, I have to say, this one. But exactly as you would expect of an Imperial Stout. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else to say about the aroma of this one. Let's go on and have a little look at or is there anything to say about the appearance of this one, I should say. Let's go on and have a wee look at the aroma. Brain not working again. Let's do this. Oh, yeah. This does smell really nice, actually. So like I mentioned to you earlier, one of my favourite flavours of ice cream is mint chocolate chip. And this one really does remind me just of like mint chocolate chip ice cream, or the After 8 chocolates. I think those are Nestle, if I remember rightly. Nestle After 8s, those dark chocolate and kind of with the minty gooey stuff in the middle. That's really what this aroma reminds me of. It really smells like After 8s. Yeah, aroma wise, this one is really, really nice actually. Right up my street. Glad that I picked this one, I have to say, but we'll see. Hopefully it's as good in the flavour as it is in the aroma, but I could sit and smell this all day. But yeah, let's try and break it down for you and describe it a wee bit more in depth. So, in terms of the overall character of the beer, yeah, the mint is really nice and subtle, but as I say, it's quite it kind of does what it says on the tin. To be honest, it's chocolate and mint. But behind that, you can definitely get that it's a kind of pastry stout for sure. You've got a little bit of the yeah, you do have a little bit of that kind of I would say more kind of granola. You've got a sort of granola knekkebrud type backbone to this one, and that's one of the things that quite often puts me off with pastry stouts. Actually, is I'm not a great fan of that flavour. I'd rather go for a more old school RIS or an Imperial milk stout or something like that. But I have found some pastry stouts that I've enjoyed, and like I say, this one caught my eye because of the chocolate mint thing. But yeah, the aroma in this one though is really quite striking, I have to say. So yeah, you've got this kind of granola backbone to it. On top of that, you have a little bit of a kind of, there's a little bit of like a slightly brown rye bread type thing going on for sure as well. So granola, rye bread, a little bit of a kind of slightly woody character as well. But this beer isn't overly kind of roasty and toasty, I don't think. There's maybe a little bit of that dryness in the very base of the beer, but like I say, more kind of granola, a little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character. There's one or two little nutty nuances for me. But as I say, it's got a little bit of an almost like chocolate brownie type character to it, but it's quite dry in that sense. I've always found that cocoa nibs are quite dry and in their flavours and aroma, so that's what I'm getting out of this one actually. So I do quite like that. In terms of the, yeah, in terms of that, the aromas that you get out of this one, yeah, I have to just say they're very, very nice. On top of the sort of chocolate brownie layer and the cocoa nibs, you do get a little touch of brown sugar in there. Like I'm kind of picking out. There's a little bit of a slightly treacly molasses and caramelly note, but the mint really, the thing is, the mint in some ways, the more and more that you smell of this beer, the mint sort of saturates your nose a little bit, and you can smell just that minty freshness in the top of the nose. So that's quite interesting. This beer, it's not madly complex in terms of its aroma, but it's just really nice. And you get some beers that are like that. They're very straight shooting, but you can just sit there and smell the aroma all day because it's nice. And I think this is one of these beers that's going to be quite like that. But yeah, the more that I smell of it too, I start to get some of these kind of phenolic fruity notes that are typical of we start to get some of these kind of phenolic notes that are typical of the pastry stout. So you start to get a wee bit of that chocolate brownie, cakey, phenolic type thing. A little touch of like Christmas pudding, actually. As I always said on the channel a few times, my dad loves Christmas pudding. It's coming up for his birthday, so he'll be no doubt getting my mum to make him another Christmas pudding for his birthday cake. But yeah, you definitely get that in this one. Now, I think that covers everything we should say about the kind of malty and adjuncty side of this beer. Like I say, it's quite straightforward in that sense, but we'll get more complexity out of it in the flavour. On the hoppy side of things, I do get a little touch of earthiness out of this one for sure. There is a little bit of that, which I'm surprised with Centennial. Centennial, of course, is about 12% alpha acid. It's an American hop, and in an IPA, it will give you a kind of nice big lemony zesty character. But of course, when you put these beers with these hops with different yeasts and in different malt bases and stuff, they will behave completely differently. Simcoe is a great example in its use in black IPAs. So yeah, Simcoe will give you passion fruit in West Coast and New England IPAs, but it will give you red fruit when you put it in a darker malt base. And I think this one is kind of doing something similar. So you've got a little bit of an earthy character in there, you've got a little bit of a herbal character, but you also have a nice little bit of a kind of floral note to this one and a bit of grassy character. So there is a bit of green component coming out of this beer in the aroma. But like I said, you've got the mintiness in the top of the nose with this beer. And you've also got yeah, you've got the mintiness in the top of this, in the top of the nose with your beer, and you've also got a wee bit of you've also just got a little bit of fruity character there. I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on with the fruits. So for me, there's a little bit of a kind of raisiny and plummy sharpness in there, but it's not too sharp, it's actually more oily. But then yeah, raisiny, no, it's a bit of an oily plum, and then yeah, you've got yeah, a bit of a raisiny plum sharpness and things like that, which is great. And you've also got within that, it does, you get more kind of blackberry. You've got a little bit of a tart blackberry character coming out of this beer as well. The more that you kind of sit on it and smell it and things. So that the way that that goes together is also very nice. But yeah, bit of plum, bit of raisin, maybe a little bit of date and stuff underneath, but we'll need to see. And then yeah, you've got the you've absolutely got a bit more of a kind of blackberry sort of sharpness coming out of this one. But like I say, you've got all these kind of phenolic notes coming out of it as well, which I found as a characteristic of pastry stouts. So yeah, as I always say, take a wee bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck in. But I think it's about time that we have a taste of this beer, actually. I'm very curious about this one. So this is the Unravel Mint, an 11% Imperial chocolate mint stout from Hop Hooligans in Jilava, just to the south of Bucharest in Romania. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers, or as I believe they say in Romania, noroc. Let's do this. Oh yeah. Now, that is quite interesting. It's actually, first impression of this beer is that as an Imperial Stout, it's actually quite light. Like, you know, it's actually very light and kind of drinkable in some ways. So yeah, I do like how that goes together. So yeah, the way this beer goes together is quite nice. But yeah, a very kind of, it's actually just a very light, one of the lighter pastry stouts that I've come across for sure. And it's actually kind of, it really is, it's almost like kind of crisp in a way. It leans more toward the grainy side of things the further into the aftertaste you go. But like I say, I do really like how this how this goes together. Very, very nice beer, this one. So thumbs up to Hop Hooligans. This is really unusual, but you know, after 3,700 beers, you want stuff like this that's going to test your palate, and this one certainly will do that. So yeah, where do we start with this beer then to describe the flavour? Yeah, middle third of your palate with this beer then. The backbone of the beer, you do get a little bit of that. You can feel a little bit of the roasty toasty, well fired character with this one. So like we say, we know what the malts in this one are. The roasted barley is definitely there. The crystal extra dark will be giving you a wee bit of this character too. So yeah, the backbone of the beer is quite, it really is quite nice and roasty toasty in that sense. And it gets a little bit drier the further into the aftertaste you go too. So you can feel that roasty toasty well fired backbone of the beer. But then on top of that, you really do get like a little bit of this almost like Nordic knäckebröd, like the sort of crackery bread sort of thing. I'm not sure how common that is to get in other places, but yeah, you do get this. It's kind of like a granola flavour actually. So yeah, you get this roasty toasty well fired backbone, then you've got a layer of sort of granola type flavours, and above that you have a little bit of a more, I would say you've got a little bit of a kind of, like, it's almost like a kind of sponge cakey layer actually. Yeah, so roasty toasty well fired backbone, a bit of granola, then a little bit of a more kind of sponge cakey layer, and then there's a wee bit of a more kind of wholemeal brown bready layer in this one as well. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is really nice. I do like how this one goes together from that perspective. So, yeah, the different layers in this one are quite interesting. But what I will say is these layers aren't too thick and fluffy and things. They're actually quite condensed and sort of crisp in a way. And that's a really interesting part of this beer. Now, above the sort of bready layer that I was talking about, you start to get the chocolate out of this one. And the chocolatey side of this beer is really quite interesting because overall it is quite a dark chocolate. It's like it's about a 70% cocoa chocolate actually, something like that. Maybe 80 at a push. So yeah, you can feel that layer on top of the sort of wholemeal brown bready character. And toward the back of that middle third of your tongue, you start to get a wee bit of you do start to get a little bit of the dryness from the cocoa nibs out of this beer, which is kind of interesting. You can kind of feel that on the back of that middle third of your palate. But as you move further forward in the palate, you can feel there is obviously a gradient with the chocolate in this beer. I would say it further back on the palate, it starts out as a sort of 80% cocoa chocolate, but as you move further forward, it starts to mellow out a wee bit, and maybe you're getting like a sort of 60-ish% cocoa chocolate there. So yeah, probably about 80 at the back, 60 further forward, but yeah, definitely, dark chocolate. Like I say, the chocolatey character that comes out of this one really is like After Eights. What does it say? Cocoa nibs and mint. To be honest, if they came out and said that they'd fired a bunch of After Eights into an Imperial Stout, whirlpool, I would, I'd absolutely believe them with this. It wouldn't surprise if they have actually just taken a bunch of After Eights and fired them into this beer, then I would not be surprised with that, because the chocolate on this one, even the chocolatey character and the minty notes are very, very similar. So yeah, the way that goes together is pretty nice. This is a beer that kind of grows and grows on me the more that I drink of it. So yeah, you've got the chocolatey layer there. Do we get a little bit of brown sugar above this one? I don't think so, to be honest. I was picking up a little bit of brown sugar in it, but above the chocolatey layer you do have this. It really reminds me of that minty goo stuff, that kind of gooey minty stuff that's in the middle of After Eights. It's really like that, but if you go to the absolute kind of dead centre of your palate, there is a little bit of brown sugar in there. You do have a little bit of that. How would you say? You've got a little bit of that more caramelly sort of thing coming out. You've got a bit of an oily sweet caramel, but of course you've got the mint mixing in with that as well, which is interesting. But of course the brown sugary flavours are that's the alcohol coming out of the beer for sure. So yeah, I do like how that goes together in this one actually. So big thumbs up to Hop Hooligans for the malt base in this. This goes together really nicely, and I think that's where most of the complexity of this beer actually is, in that middle third of your palate. So let's look at the back third of the palate then and see how we get on there. But remember, as I always say, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, darker flavours come out a little bit further back. So yeah, the back third of your palate then, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up in there, which is good. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of brown bready, cakey sort of build up in there. And then the base of the back third of the palate again is that sort of roasty toasty black barley. Above that, you start to get a little bit of a more above that there's a little bit of a more how would we say, you've got the roasty toasty barley, then a little bit above that you've got a more how would we say, you've got a little bit of that more kind of sort of cakey, you've got a little bit of a more kind of cakey layer. As I say, it feels like a sort of chocolate brownie, but at the same time, like, there's a little bit of booze to it. Actually, you've got a little bit of that kind of phenolic quality. Above all of that, you have a more, you do get a little bit of a more kind of, you've got a little bit of that kind of phenol, roasty toasty barley, a little bit of a kind of phenol type thing, and then above that, you have a little bit of a more kind of brown bready note, and the brown bready note actually kind of, it's like a mix of brown bread and sponge cake. So yeah, roasty toasty barley, you get a little bit of the granola dryness in there, then that phenolic chocolate brownie cake, and then a little bit more of a kind of brown bready type character. These layers are all in that back third of the palate, and they feel just a little bit taller actually, which I think is kind of interesting. So above all of that, you can feel the cocoa nibs kind of creep. As I said, the cocoa nibs are in the toward the back of that middle third of your palate, but they kind of creep over. They creep over a little bit into the back third of your palate as well, so you can feel those above all those kind of cakey layers and things that I mentioned. Above that, you start to get some of the yeasty notes out of the beer, so it's like a very light cakey note coming out of it, and you can feel the back third. Above all that, there's a little touch of honeycomb and stuff in there as well. I always get honeycomb in the yeasty notes on the back third of the palate, but you can feel the flavour is definitely taller, and then as you move further forward, things just condense down and squash together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that that kind of goes together, I think, is very, very nice actually. Yeah, so the malty and yeasty side of this beer and the adjuncty side of things too goes together really nicely in my opinion. Let's focus on the let's focus on the hoppy side of things with this beer then. So back corners of the palate, I'd say there's a little touch of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, there's a little bit of a more kind of herbal character, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, you've got more of a kind of floral, aromatic sort of thing coming out of this one. So yeah, as I say, a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of herbal characters. When you push further forward, it's got a little bit of a more kind of floral, aromatic type quality to it. So yeah, you do have a nice little bit of green component to this one. Remember, the Imperial Stout is not the most hop forward of beer styles, but it goes together quite nicely. Round the front curve of the tongue, there's a little bit of a lighter grassy sort of thing too. So yeah, you do have a little bit of a green component in there. So yeah, it sort of adds a little bit more depth to the beer, and I like that, how it goes together with the mint actually. But yeah, let's focus on the fruity side of the beer then. I think we've said everything we really need to about the green component of the beer. So front third of your palate then, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Yeah, so that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you've got a nice kind of, you've got a little bit of a kind of cakey, bready build up in there, which I think goes together really, really well. I do like that about this one. So yeah, you get that little bit of cakey, bready build up in there. The base of that front third of your palate, you still have a bit of the roasty toastiness in there. You've got a little bit of the kind of cakey thing that I was talking about, and it's almost, you do get a little bit of that sort of phenol, medicinal type quality in there as well. And then above that, you have a little bit of a more kind of cocoa nib dryness too. So some of the cocoa nibs are sitting there on the front third of your palate too, but the border region, yeah, a little bit of a more, like I said, a little bit of a more kind of bready, you say sort of bready, cakey build up in there, but with some phenol notes in it, like a kind of brandy soaked bread or something like that. Then yeah, base of roasty toastiness, a little bit of kind of smoothness, and also that. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together in that instance is really, really quite nice actually. But above all of that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll the way out of the beer, and that's what we're going to look at now. So yeah, on the fruity side of things. When you take the beer in, there's a little bit of a, you do get a little touch of raisiny note out of this one and some oily plum, but actually for me the fruity character really is more phenolic and medicinal. You've got a wee bit of a, more, how would we say, you've got the raisin on the top, you've got the more oily, you've got the more kind of oily, kind of datey and pruny type notes underneath, and then yeah, you can really feel that sort of cakey note toward the back of that front third of your palate. But as you move further forward, you have a wee bit of a more, you've got a wee bit of a more kind of sultana type note in there as well, and that's interesting. But as you go into the front half of that front third of your palate, you have you do have a little bit of a more, how would we say, you've got a little bit of a more kind of figgy note, and you also have a little bit of black currant in there, and you also have a wee bit of a blackberry type quality as well. So yeah, the way that that goes together is really nice. But for me, the fruity character in this one, it is quite typical pastry stout. It's got that more kind of phenolic type quality to it as well, which I find quite interesting. So yeah, the fruity side is it's nicely done too. But yeah, I do like this beer. This is something really quite different. I've never reviewed something like this on the channel before, so kudos to Hop Hooligans for even thinking to do something like this. But yeah, to round off this review then with the mouthfeel, for me, this beer is pushing top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got a little bit of, it has got a little bit of a more, it's got a kind of silky but smooth and kind of oily mouthfeel to it. Yeah, sort of a silky smooth mouthfeel to it, but there's a little bit of dryness in there as well. So yeah, I do like how this goes together in that sense. But there's a good balance in this beer between the sort of pastry side of things, you know, the sort of savoury side. There's a bit of sweetness in there. The mint, obviously, the more that you drink of this beer, the mint kind of dominates, so you've got that kind of minty freshness to it as well. So yeah, the malty and adjuncty side of things is quite interesting. When you've got smoothness, you've got a bit of graininess in there, you've got a bit of sweetness, and you've also got that minty freshness out of it too. But then on the hoppy side of the beer, you have got a little bit of green component in there, but I don't think there's too much in the way of IBUs, you know, 20-ish IBUs, something like that. A little bit of a fruity sort of thing as well. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together is quite, it is really quite nice actually. Yeah, I think the fruity side of the beer for me is quite phenolic and quite medicinal, but you've also got those more oily fruits in there. We've covered the malt, we've covered the kind of yeasty side of things and the hoppy character. It's definitely an Imperial pastry stout, this one, but it has really kind of caught my interest, and I have enjoyed this one, I have to say. So yeah, pastry stouts for me are either, it seems that pastry stouts for me are a bit of a hit or a miss, and this is definitely a hit. I have enjoyed this one. And yeah, I think everything in this is really well balanced. So well done to Hop Hooligans for doing a very, very nice beer actually. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This is the Unravel Mint, an 11% Choco Mint Imperial Stout. Yeah, probably an Imperial pastry stout to be honest with you, from Hop Hooligans in Jilava in Romania. Yeah, really enjoyed reviewing this one. So cool to feature another Romanian beer on the channel for the first time in quite a wee while. But let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Hop Hooligans as well, and we will no doubt add more to the Romanian playlist in the near future. But until then, Slange, Scott, cheers. Check out my social media, check out Hop Hooligans social media, check out Beer Dome in the Netherlands too, and I'll see you guys later. Slange, Scott, and cheers.